Now, here's Scott and Drew.
And just like that, we do say welcome into another brand new live edition of Talking Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Theisen, Drew DeArmond with you for 2 more hours on this Tuesday morning. Welcome in March 15th. Safe travels into work, into school, wherever you may be headed on this Tuesday. We appreciate you for tuning in. We also invite you to be a part of the show if you are out and about. I know it's spring break for a lot of our listeners right now, but if you're out and about, 256-576-4977 for you to comment on anything that you hear throughout the show, or if you got something weighing on your mind, feel free to give us a holler. We've got a lot of stuff to get through this morning. No shortage of stuff. Don't forget, tonight you do get NCAA tournament basketball. It does get underway tonight in case you really want to watch some of the first 4. You get a SWAC school. Texas Southern taking on Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And then you get Wyoming and Indiana meeting tonight. Those are the first 2 games of the NCAA tournament. Those are 2 of the first 4. Then tomorrow night, you get Wright State and Bryant, and then Rutgers and Notre Dame. That is on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, all heck breaks loose. That is when you get everything going on, starting on Thursday. So between now and Sunday, starting tonight, going all the way through Sunday, you get NCAA tournament college basketball. Not a bad way to start your week if you are a college basketball fan. We'll talk more college basketball, though, as the show goes on. Major League Baseball, obviously, it is good to see. It is good to see spring training go on down in Florida and in Arizona. Now, it's going to be a hurried spring training, but we will get Major League Baseball on time, and we're going to get the full season, which is good. And we're going to find out where a lot of these teams, these off-season moves, because of the lockout, a lot of these off-season moves could not happen until the lockout ended. So that's why you're seeing this frenzy of free agent signings. You're seeing these frenzy of trades. You're seeing everything happen in an instant because the lockout prevented a lot of that from happening. And we've been trying our best to follow the Freddie Freeman saga with the Atlanta Braves. Well, yesterday the Atlanta Braves basically waved the white flag and said, well, we've had enough, because they acquire Matt Olson from the Oakland Athletics for 4 prospects. Matt Olson, by the way, not a bad first baseman. He did hit 39 home runs last year. He was also a Gold Glove winner in 2018, 2019. But the acquisition of Matt Olson, Drew, signifies that Freddie Freeman's time in an Atlanta Brave uniform has pretty much come to an end.
Looks that way. We'll see if he ends up going to the Dodgers, or if he ends up a New York Yankee. There's even thoughts of the Toronto Blue Jays making a strong move for him. The most surprising one was the Tampa Bay Rays, because they're a small market ball club, but they've got a really good team, as everybody knows, a lot of young talent.
Yeah.
Perhaps they've generated enough revenue to sign Freddie Freeman. But, yeah, Matt Olson, if you look at his numbers, 39 bombs, 111 RBIs, 101 runs scored. A guy that's, probably you could argue he and Freddie Freeman are the 2 best gloves at first base in all of baseball. So if you're going to go in that direction, he's also a lefty. The Braves, it's probably as good as they could have done if you're going to lose Freddie Freeman. Plus, if you look at age, 27 years old to 32. Matt's 27 years old. Freddie's 32 years old.
Right.
And the salary. Freddie Freeman demanding, huge money, and he should be. I mean, he's as good as any player in baseball at his position. We're talking $20+ million a year, $25 million, maybe even $30. It just depends on what kind of money he gets. But $20+ million a year. Matt Olson, $507,000. Told a friend of mine that he couldn't believe it. I said, well, he's under arbitration control for 2 more years, and before he's eligible to be, really bumped up. I would think the Braves making a deal like this, a huge one, would sign him to an extension in the very near future to try to get him locked up. He's a Marietta native. He went to Parkview High School, the same high school as Jeff Francoeur.
Still going to be below probably what they would have paid for.
For
Freddie Freeman. And it was the price and the length of the contract.
6 years.
That
he wanted a 6
stalled
years.
out the negotiations between, and then they still have stalled out between Freddie Freeman and the Atlanta Braves. And Alex Anthopoulos really had no choice.
Because Matt Olson was a wanted guy. I mean, right. there was other organizations that definitely because we know how the A's operate, Scott. They're not a big money organization. They have to develop their own young talent, just like they did Olson. But eventually they usually trade it and move on. And the Braves had to give up Christian Pache, who never really figured it out at the plate with the Braves as a center field prospect. And then the one surprise when you look, they gave up 3 top 10 prospects in the deal, but was Shane Langoliers, their player of the year, the catcher. Had to give him up. They kept Contreras, so we'll see what happens. But the Braves making a big move, and now they've more than likely given up on the Freddie Freeman situation. I know Bill Shanks, who came on our show last week, said that, he tweeted yesterday that Matt Olson has played some outfield in his career if the Braves found a way to fit Freddie Freeman, back into the plans. But I think, as time went on yesterday during his show, he's doing some recon. He said that's very unlikely to happen. But what the Braves might do now with this money that they didn't have to allocate to Freddie Freeman, they're going to be, I would think, some, their factors for another bat, especially in the outfield, like bringing back a Jorge Soler, who is getting a lot of, attention from 6 to 10 teams, because now, especially with the DH being universal, he can DH and play right field and left field. So Jorge Soler will be a wanted guy, but the Braves potentially could bring him back on a free agent deal.
Yeah, and the Braves really had no choice, like I mentioned, because of the lockout, and they lost, 2 months, 3 months of negotiating. They really had to make a decision now whether or not to move on from Freddie Freeman or give him what he wanted, because with spring training now underway, and it's a condensed spring training, you really had no choice but to go out and make the move when you did, like you did, because you got to have a first baseman. So where does that leave the Braves as far as everyone else goes? Ronald Acuna, Alex Anthopoulos did say that he's likely will not be ready to go defensively until late May. So don't expect Ronald Acuna Jr. to be out there defensively at least until May. The good news is the National League now does have the DH, so you can always DH and not play defensively there for the Atlanta Braves. Other than that, there you go. That is your Atlanta Braves notes from spring training. No Freddie Freeman, Matt Olson, first baseman now for the Atlanta Braves. 256-576-4977. If you want to get in on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, feel free to do so this morning. Your thoughts on the Atlanta Braves looking more and more likely now, moving on from Freddie Freeman as their first baseman. We went through this last year, getting rid of Anthony Rizzo, and I remember as a kid, Drew, going through this when the Cubs moved on from Mark Grace. And when Grace signed with the Arizona Cardinals and moved on from Mark Grace, it was weird seeing Grace play in a Diamondbacks uniform. It's going to be weird seeing Freddie Freeman play in any other uniform than a Braves uniform.
It is, but as I've told some people yesterday who were distraught that Freddie Freeman was leaving, and I was certainly disappointed, but I definitely thought that it was a good move to get Matt Olson, who's going to be, I still think, a great player and someone that you got under your control for several more years. Is if you go back and look at the dynasty the Braves had when they won 14 straight division titles and a World Series in 1995, there was one player, who stayed throughout his entire career as a Brave and then ends up in the Hall of Fame, and that's Chipper Jones. And by the time Chipper got to the end of his career, I think everybody understood his body broke down. He wasn't, the Chipper Jones that we saw throughout the prime of his career, but they all left. Maddox left, Glavine left, Smoltz left, all of those guys, David Justice, Javi Lopez. You go down the list of all the stalwarts that were with those Braves ball clubs that were brought up by the Braves, most of them all through the organization or through trades when they were very young. Greg Maddux was certainly a free agent signing, but again, they all left the Atlanta Braves, and so it's inevitable. It happens, but I mean, after what Alex Anthopoulos did last year, navigating through the Ronald Acuna injury and reshaping the outfield and then helping them still win the World Series and then doing what he did with Matt Olson. See, here's the thing. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Because,
well, I was going to say, if the Braves don't win the World Series last year and Alex Anthopoulos doesn't make those moves, do you look at Alex Anthopoulos different going into the signing or getting Matt Olson and letting Freddie Freeman go?
He's got some equity. And so, of course, on social media, there was a lot of Braves fans complaining that, why are you trading away 3 of our best prospects to get players? Well, all you were saying last year before he won the World Series is you don't ever make trades and all you do is hold on to the prospects. So eventually you got to do something. Okay? You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You got to eventually do something. And so he did something. And again, Freddie Freeman wants 6 years. The Braves were leery about that because of what his age would be at the end. And you can understand that when you look at the Albert Pujols contract. He was not near, where he was supposed to be or the player that he was when he signed the contract with the Anaheim Angels. And so I know Freddie Freeman's, for the most part, he's had a couple of injuries, but he's been a durable player. But again, and I know the DH is now universal, but if the guy wants money that you don't want to extend it past 5 years, then, I mean, you've got to move on. And you got to have at least a plan that you think can work. And honestly, I thought this was a good move by Alex Anthopoulos. I mean, I hate it. Freddie Freeman was my favorite player on the Braves team. But again, sometimes things don't work out. And like I said, Freddie Freeman still hasn't signed. I think that's very interesting. I don't know if they would, if they could come back to an agreement where it'd be a deal where I think it's about 10% chance it happens, but you could rotate Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna, and Freddie Freeman between the DH spot, and then, of course, Olson and Ozuna could also play some outfield for you, but I just don't think that's going to happen. I think I thought it was very interesting. If you follow Mark Bowman on Twitter, he works for Major League Baseball, covers the Braves, and he's really been covering Atlanta for 20 years. Yeah. And he tweeted yesterday after this trade, he said, look, the Braves weren't even – I don't get the feeling that they even made a push, a huge push for Freddie Freeman. I'm sure they had discussions, but it never got into hyperdrive, it sounded like. And Matt Olson was someone that I think they were always looking at because, again, he doesn't make a lot of money right now. You have him under financial control for a couple years. And just like you signed Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies a couple years ago to long-term contracts that were – below market value, you could definitely, probably sign Matt Olson and it'd be the same situation.
Here's Matt Olson's reaction, though, to being traded to Atlanta.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of noise about it, so I knew there was a potential of something happening. I can't say enough about the A's organization, what they've done for me. I've been here since 2012, so almost 10 years, my whole baseball career, and it's bittersweet leaving. Obviously, I know Atlanta is an amazing place, World Series champs, my hometown, so if there was one place to go and leave here, that's the place to do it. So I'm excited about it. A lot of good friendships here that we'll be saying bye to, and it's just like I said, bittersweet, but excited about what's to come.
That was Matt Olson's reaction after being traded from the A's to the Braves. Let's go out to the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Justin's with us on a Tuesday morning. Good morning, Justin.
Good morning, guys. How we doing today?
Good, sir. How are you?
Sick.
Sick.
I'm sick, to be honest with you, man. I'm a diehard Freddie Freeman fan, and I know this is a business, and Matt Olson is a great player, and I totally get what Alex Anthopoulos had to do, but Freddie made it pretty clear that he just wanted 6 years. I don't think it was necessarily ever about the money. I think it was more about the years, and he even stated that he would take less money for 6 years, and if they would do the 6 years. And I understand the whole business of him being 38 years old by the time his contract's up, but to me, if you go back to the World Series parade, everybody that grabbed the microphone and spoke during that World Series parade, every one of them begged the Braves to re-sign him. And I think he's more than just a player to that organization. Those players, he was the man they turned to, the leader. And I think it's going to have. I know they're professionals and it's a business and they kind of know how to cope with stuff like this, but I think it's going to affect them.
It very well could. Because Freddie Freeman was a leader. You are losing that. If he does not resign, you're losing that. That is a valuable piece in the locker room.
And the other thing that kind of upset me was, you remember back in 2014 when he signed his first contract, I believe it was 2014. He fought through the lean years, 15, 16, 17. Atlanta was not very good. And he could have went to anywhere to a bigger market for more money at the time. And I think they owed, and if it's true that they did for Olson and didn't, even tell him or his agent, I don't guess they have to, but I thought maybe they kind of owed it to him to do that because of what he's done for that franchise. I'm just upset with the way the whole thing went down because I know Anthopoulos wanted to give him, and so did Snicker. It was all about the ownership that didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree there. All right.
And that's just my 2 cents on the whole thing, but it really is upsetting. But I imagine Matt Olson will be fine, but I think the Braves are losing more than just a baseball player right now.
Well, it could very well be. Again, Justin, he hasn't signed with another ball club yet. We'll see what happens if anything changes. Certainly it can, but it does look like Freddie Freeman's going to, I hope it's not the Dodgers. I can't stand them. Never been a Dodgers fan. He would be going back home, and if that was the case for him, I'd like to see him, to be honest with you, if he was going to go somewhere, I'd like it to, of the ball clubs that I've mentioned, I'd like it to be Tampa or Toronto because at least he would not be competing in the National League against the Braves. But certainly it's going to be tough to see him in another uniform. I think he's the best first baseman in Braves history. I think he's a Hall of Fame player, but certainly, hopefully, Matt Olson will continue to produce, and the Braves will. And again, he's a younger guy, 5 years younger, so at least you're going to have that young core together. And it doesn't look like you're going to lose anything defensively, but that's just the way baseball is. Sometimes it's tough to hold guys to keep guys together. Now it's going to be interesting to see what the Braves do pitching wise because you've got Max Fried who you'd like to get locked up, and then they've got to see if Soroka can come back from these injuries. But the pitching staff is going to be the next the part of the Braves that they're going to have to deal with as far as trying to get the pitching staff locked up long term if they want to continue to stay good.
All right, Justin, thanks for the call, but got to move on.
No problem, guys.
All right, let's stay on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline real fast. Wolverine Dan with us. Good morning, sir.
What's up, Dan?
Yeah, Drew, I didn't know you didn't like the Dodgers. You didn't like the Kirk Gibson where he could barely walk and He took the golf shot for a home run to win the series. You didn't like that?
No, basically I puked in the floor because, I mean, that Oakland A's team, 85% of them came through Huntsville. Wanted to see the A's win the World Series. They got it done the next year in the Earthquake Series against Will Clark and the Giants, and then lost in 90 to the Eric Davis and the Reds. So that ball club that was so good under Tony La Russa, where that was homegrown through Huntsville, only got one World Series title, so that was kind of disappointing. But, yeah, I'm not the biggest Kirk Gibson and Dodgers fan and Oral Hershiser because of the Dodgers breaking the A's hearts back years ago. So that started my disdain for the Dodgers early.
See, I love that moment in baseball.
I mean, it's a great moment. I mean, Kirk Gibson's
it.
a gutty guy. It's not one of my favorite moments because I wasn't rooting for the Dodgers. But
right,
if you're,
right.
And Oral Hershiser had one of the great, postseasons ever when he and Kirk Gibson basically, Kirk with that one moment, and then Oral carried the team on his back because of how good he was in the postseason.
That was when, though, but the A's had Dave Stewart, though, as their closer, right? I mean, guy.
No, he wasn't a closer. Eckersley was the closer.
Yes.
Dave was their ace. Yeah.
Dude, that guy was scary.
Yeah, he was. He was intense.
Before my take, real quick, I got a quickie thing about the Gibson thing. I actually got my man cave. I gave all my stuff to my son, and I actually have a Wheaties box that has Kirk Gibson doing the, fist pump or or whatever you call it. I'm saying. So I thought it was pretty cool. Anyway, you didn't like it, I know. You probably wouldn't have ate the Wheaties out of that box if you don't like the Dodgers. But I will say this: it's nice to see, unlike Freddie Freeman, the contract is extended another year, the greatest player of all time. Yes. He's back. That's what I'm talking about. I am thrilled to death. I mean, so much for Rodgers, $70 million a year. Well, Rodgers, you're not going to win a Super Bowl as long as Tom Brady's playing, for crying out loud.
Yeah, Tom Brady back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 40 days is what his retirement lasted.
Well, I feel the same way. I've been retired for a year and a half. And, dude, I got so many projects right now in the fire right now because, listen, guys, just because you get older doesn't mean you stop. I mean, if the fire's in the belly, and you know what I'm talking about, you meet a lot of athletes that have fire in the belly. Well, heck, you guys got fire in the belly. You get up at, 3 o'clock in the morning every day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Anyway.
I do.
What I'm trying to say is fire in the belly, and you can't take that away. And he still is the greatest player of all time. So,
no, he is, and we'll see what Tampa Bay does. I know they're bringing back his center. As soon as he announced that, they re-signed his center that he's had for the last 2 years there in Tampa Bay. So other pieces are starting to fall back into place for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At least now we know this is it. One more ride.
Well. Yeah, one more ride, so we'll see how it plays out. But my son gave me a very interesting stat. I guess it was the Wolverines, the football team and both basketball teams made it into the playoffs this year, and no other team at NCAA at this year made the playoffs with all three teams. How about that?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good little stat there.
Thank you. I want to thank my son. He's happy. He's my stat guy, fellas. We all got a stat guy, except Drew DeArmond. He just said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I remember this." Yeah, Judy, you got a mind like an elephant. No pun intended. I know it's Alabama's mascot, but dude, you know sports. I thought I do it. No, you know a lot more than anybody does.
Appreciate it, Dan.
All right, Dan. Thanks, bud. All right, we got to get our break in. When we come back, we're going to talk some Florida stuff. Simply because the Gators, they need a head coach. They need a basketball coach. Plus, something they haven't been able to see or do or anything and be a part of, spring football there in Florida football. Dan Mullen, close those gates.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Good morning from the traffic center. We had that one wreck, 431 southbound at Simpson Point Road in New Hope. That one should be just about cleared up. may be gone already. Everything else looks good this morning. You be careful on your ride in. Popeye's Flounder Fish Sandwich is only $4.49. You can make it a combo for $6.49. Popeye's University in Jordan, 72 in Jeff and North Parkway. Captain Nick in the Popeye Skywatch Traffic Center.
Attention Huntsville, this is your very last opportunity to purchase the best lakefront living for North Alabama. Saturday, March 19th on 43,000-acre Pickwick Lake, Alabama Land Sales will be offering the final release of prime lakefront home sites in a gated community with paved private roads, central sewer, underground utilities, and low taxes. Direct waterfront with amazing views starting at just $49.9. The first 4 phases of new-to-market parcels sold in one day, so set aside Saturday, March 19th to take advantage of this final release and learn more by taking a video tour at 888-544-LAKE.com, then call 888-544-LAKE for an early showing. That's direct lakefront with 153 feet of water frontage, just $49.9. Gated community, convenient to Huntsville on Pickwick Lake. Call or click 888-544-LAKE.com, then call 888-544-LAKE for an early appointment.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
A wise man once said, "If you take care of old folks and children, everything in the middle will take care of itself."
Hi, I'm Danny Aldridge, lawyer in Alabama and Tennessee. In the next 20 years, the number of those folks over 65 years of age will more than double. In our golden years, the most important goal is to be treated with dignity and have control over doing what makes you grateful with those you love. At the Aldridge Law Firm and the Legal Town Center, we're dedicated to help you with these goals, and we'll be there when life throws you those inevitable curveballs. Let us assist you with your legal needs, whatever they may be or become. You may reach us by phone at 256-534-3188 or online with Dan at danaldridgelaw.com. Just remember, we're here to help. Whether it's personal injury, wrongful death, fraud and cheat, or estate planning made complete, we're here to help.
Hey, Bobby White from Woody Anderson Ford back again to talk to you about how easy it is to make a custom factory order. Just click WoodyAndersonFord.com, hit the top banner, then start making your selections. It's really simple, and you'll end up with the exact vehicle you want. Not only is there no extra charge to custom order, but at Woody Anderson Ford, we'll take 5% off MSRP on top of any additional factory rebates on the 2022 F-150, Bronco Sport, Explorer, Expedition, and Ranger. Another option for you is a certified pre-owned. We have over 100 Ford Blue Advantage certified pre-owned models to choose from. Our Ford Gold certified are low mileage, gently used with great warranties. They've passed a 175-point inspection by certified technicians and come with a 24-hour roadside assistance, plus a full tank of gas and a fresh oil change. Also, don't forget our service department is offering a free pickup and delivery when it's time for your next Ford service. Woody Anderson Ford, Jordan at Sparkman, hope to see you soon.
Local sports is covered right here.
Well, appreciate what you guys do for sports, but also for high school sports and taking time to talk to us. That means a lot, and appreciate what you guys do, and appreciate you having us on.
97.7 ESPN The Zone.
This is Paul Feinbaum. Listen to me coming up today at 2. Now back to Talking Ball with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
7:30 on a Tuesday morning. Welcome back into Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond with you on a Tuesday. And yesterday we talked a lot about the NCAA bracket. We'll talk some more about it coming up here later in the first hour. But anyway, the Florida Gators, 1, they need a new basketball coach, and 2, they're getting ready to kick off spring football. So it is an interesting time, needless to say, in Gainesville.
And 3, we just talked to Will William Dan about it a little bit because he was talking about the GOAT and Tom Brady and all that. But free agency in the NFL is going nuts right now. And the Jacksonville Jaguars actually look like they have a coherent plan, Scott, because they're actually building an offensive line around Jesus, a.k.a., the greatest quarterback of all time, Trevor Lawrence, who is a great young player. And I admire what they're doing. They're actually trying to build an offensive line around the dude. And I think they upgraded head coach exponentially on the NFL level, getting Doug Peterson over Urban Meyer, who was just a disaster. I mean, there's just no other term to use. And I knew he would be, and he will never coach again in the NFL. He can't coach in the NFL. He just couldn't handle, he just losing grinds his gears. And again, you can't treat these guys like college kids. They got to be treated like grown men. And Urban has never been a strong communicator, in my opinion. And so he just wasn't going to be a guy that could – there's not many that can coach both levels. Coach K is probably the only one that's been able to do it, and that's in a basketball sense. But I know our next guest is with us. He does a great job covering the Sunshine State. And, of course, he works for News Talk 102.1 FM, 1240 WFOY in St. Augustine. And, of course, he has Sports Now 5 to 7 every Monday on 1021news.com. That's John Frary. John, welcome back to the show. You're with Drew and Scott. And am I right here? I know we're going to talk Gators in a second, but the Jacksonville Jaguars actually look like they have a coherent plan.
Coherent and the Jacksonville Jaguars have never gone together, Scott. Good morning.
Yeah.
I agree. That word, I think, is very appropriate for what happened yesterday.
Yes.
And it's night and day between players wanting to come to Jacksonville to play for Doug Peterson over Urban Meyer, because you actually have an established plan, a guy that's a known commodity in the NFL, unlike a guy who was just talking bravado and out of his you-know-what. I'll just leave it at that last year. But they made a big splash, 6 free agent signings yesterday. Christian Kirk, well, it's the tampering period. They actually don't sign till starting tomorrow. So let me start with that. But they've got them committed, let's put it that way, in recruiting terms from the prior coach. But Christian Kirk, the wide receiver from Texas A&M and the Arizona Cardinals, is the name that jumped off the page for most, and for good reason. He had career highs last year, 77 receptions, 982 yards, played mostly in the slot. And here's the big number for me, guys, with him. In 4 seasons, Christian Kirk had 11 drop passes. Last year, the Jacksonville Jaguars led the league with 39 combined. So that alone gives Trevor Lawrence a reliable target, something he did not have all of last year amongst everything else, guys. So I think that's going to be really huge for Trevor and his development in year 2. And then on the offensive line, Brandon Scherff, the Pro Bowl
Iowa Hawkeye,
guard from Washington. I love that signing because Trevor was under a lot of duress, got hit quite a bit last year at quarterback, so I think that's a good move. I think Scherff comes in and the best offensive lineman on paper right now for the Jags from day one. And then the guy that really intrigues me, that I got to admit, I didn't know much about this young man, but Foyesade Alukin from Atlanta, the linebacker who led the league with the Falcons last year in tackles at 192. I think he's going to go great with Miles Jack on the linebacker to team up with him here in Jacksonville. And then another name your listeners might be familiar with from the Southeastern Conference, Evan Ingram, a tight end who was with the New York Giants. He had 44 receptions was his low for the Giants in his tenure there back in 2019. Guys, the Jags have only had in the history of the franchise, 27 years, a tight end that caught more than 44 passes in a season, only 3 times. So that right there jumps off the charts to me, that they're going to have a viable option in the passing game at tight end, which they have not had. It's been a huge vacuum. And then they also picked up a defensive tackle, Fadakasi from the New York Jets, who, known to be a run stopper, can create pressure up the middle, and I think he'll rotate with Malcolm Brown and Devon Hamilton. And then to cap it off, Zay Jones, another wide receiver out of the Las Vegas Raiders. I almost said Oakland, but I caught myself. He was with Las Vegas last year. And again, I think he provides depth and should be a number 3 receiver probably for the Jags. But on paper, this looks awfully good, but I want to preface it with Jacksonville's been here before. Let's see what they do on the field. But I do like the direction it's going. And, again, I like your word, Scott, coherent, because it just feels a lot more professional with one Doug Peterson than it did a year ago for the Jags.
Let me ask you this, though. And Jacksonville, yes, they're going out and getting some pieces and they're getting some names. But are they having to overspend on some of these guys? Because some of the money that they're spending, yes, they're talented guys, but Jacksonville's not a destination place to go. Even though they got a new coach and they got things, are they having to overspend a little bit to get some of these guys?
Yes, for the reasons you just brought up. It's not a destination place, and it's a losing organization historically.
Yeah.
I mean, those are facts. They've only had one winning season in the past decade plus. So I think you are going to have to overspend, Scott and Drew, initially to bring these guys in until Doug Peterson can establish a winning culture in Jacksonville, and hopefully that's where it's going. Christian Kirk got $72 million, could be up to $84 million for the deal he signed with the Jags. And yes, they did overspend, but I think they had to be quite honest, guys, because with the competition that's out there in free agency right now, Jacksonville's going to have to offer more than the other guys, honestly, to get some of these big names to come in. And I think that was their strategy going in. Trent Baalke, the general manager, who's been under a lot of heat from the fan base here, stated going into Combine, in the NFL Combine, Jacksonville is going to be aggressive in free agency. And we had heard this before, and it's never materialized. But to Trent's credit, they were. And so let's see what these guys do on the field. But I think they did have to overspend to get this talent in here.
Well, and then, John, they've kept Cam Robinson. They franchised him, and then they have the first pick in the draft. A lot of talk about Evan Neal, the offensive tackle from Alabama. They could have bookend tackles. Personally, if they don't trade down, and if they do, I would still go offensive tackle because it's a deep draft for the OT spot. To me, you've got to continue to build that wall around Trevor Lawrence and get two bookend tackles. If you're going to keep Cam, that's fine, and he's been a solid player for Jacksonville. But if you can get two tackles to go along with Brandon Sheriff, that offensive line is going to look a lot different.
I agree with you, Drew. I know the conventional wisdom over here was once Cam Robinson got franchise tagged, that automatically meant the Jags weren't going to pursue an offensive tackle with the first overall pick. I don't necessarily agree. I think Evan Neal is still a viable option here for Doug Peterson and the Jags because, one, Cam Robinson's franchise tagged, which means they've only got him under control for this next season. They'd have to go through this whole thing again next year with him. And two, the Jags' offensive line has been a mess, not only last year with Trevor Lawrence, but for years. So just because you went out and got Sharif, in the free agency, and you franchise tag Cam, like you said, Evan Neal would be a great piece to have long term. And for the first year, you could swing him out to right tackle. Cam will play left tackle, and then we'll see from there if they decide to extend Cam. But I think Evan Neal is definitely on the Jags board and could be that first pick on April 28th.
And then Gators spring football, Scott made reference to it. Billy Napier getting started. Are they going? I don't think they're not going to lock everyone out this year, are they?
Thank goodness, no, Drew. I mean, I think it was an FBI camp the last few years under Dan Mullen. I mean, getting information out of there was unbelievable. Anything you could get, they're not going to lock people out, and they are going to have, there's a nasty rumor, but they're going to have a spring game this year, too. They haven't had it in 3 years on April 16th. So that was something else they didn't have last year, not to bring up an old subject. But moving forward, obviously the quarterback is the most intriguing spot, like every team, but especially at Florida. Anthony Richardson went through some off-season surgery on his knee to clean up some stuff. He's supposed to be 100% for the spring. Jack Miller coming in from Ohio State from the transfer portal. I'm intrigued to see what he looks like. Believe it or not, Emory Jones is still in the mix here for now. I don't think he'll be here in the fall, guys. I think he transfers out in May. but he's still here. And then you've got the young guys, Carlos Del Rio and Jalen Kitna, as part of the mix too. Max Brown won't be here until the fall, the 3-star from Tulsa that Billy Napier got in recruiting. But it's going to be intriguing to see what this offense looks like. And speaking of tight ends, which I spoke about with the Jaguars, I'll be curious to see if they can get the tight end back incorporated in this offense. 2 years ago, they had maybe the best one ever in school history in Kyle Pitts. Last year, it was an empty vacuum. So we'll see where they go there, and the running game, which they brought in Montrell Johnson, a transfer from Louisiana, with Billy Napier a few weeks back. And, of course, DeMarcus Bowman and Lorenzo Lingard, a couple of guys that were 5 stars coming out of high school. One went to Miami, one went to Clemson, with Damian Pierce and Malik Davis departing. And Naquan Wright out with an injury right now for the spring. I'm going to be curious to see what these guys look like as well moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And then we, of course, were texting throughout the weekend watching the SEC tournament. There seemed to be a thought that, well, it looks like Mike White may get one more year with the Gators to try to reach a 5th NCAA tournament. He'd reached 4 in 7 years, but still trying to fill the huge shoes of Billy Donovan. And then we were all shocked when Mike White leaves maybe the Gators for the biggest rival, the Georgia Bulldogs. I know you probably had a lot to talk about on Sports Now last night, but how has the Gator fan base accepted this, and what is the thought about now being the guy that replaces the guy that replaces to fill Billy Donovan's shoes? Because sometimes it takes someone like a Mike White to be the bridge to finally find the right fit in Gainesville in their minds. Because again, the SEC's become so good in basketball that the Gators have become a program that is kind of hovering around the middle of the pack.
Mike White was an enigma for Gator fans, Drew. It was kind of like being caught in the Bermuda Triangle. And what I mean by that is he was good enough most years to get you to the NCAA tournament. And they even won the last 4 years, one game in the tournament.
Yeah.
However, he was never good enough to make you feel like you were going to make a move toward the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8 or get in the upper echelon. And offensively, Florida was dreadful to watch for years under Mike White. I think most Gator fans were ready for a change, ready to move on. It was a shock that Georgia was the destination. I thought Mississippi might be the destination, even though there's not an opening there yet.
Right,
but I thought that's where, and you and I had texted about that. But overall, I think it was time for a change. Mike White did a nice job the 7 years he was with Florida, but it got stagnant. The program was stuck in neutral. They weren't going forward, in my opinion. And I think now they're probably going to head towards getting a young upcomer, maybe a Matt McMahon from Murray State, who has an offense that I think Florida fans would be happy with. They run screens for outside shooters. They cut to the basket for uncontested dunks. A lot of stuff we haven't seen here in Florida over the past few seasons. And then Bob Ritchie from Furman is another name that's out there. Jerome Tang, an assistant from Baylor, who's known for bringing in top-notch recruits. And you guys know where the Baylor basketball program is right now. So there's a lot of names that are out there. Anthony Grant, who's been with the program under Billy Donovan's another name that's mentioned. I don't think they're going to go with a Rick Pitino or a John Beilein, though. I've seen those names thrown out there over the last couple of days. And while both of those guys have been great, no question, I just think Florida is going to want to go with the younger guy that has the potential to be there for 10 years or more. And like you said, Drew, the guy that comes after the guy that replaced the legend is sometimes the one that works out. For instance, Urban Meyer came after Ron Zook. I know he was a disaster in Jacksonville, but that worked out pretty well for the Gators once upon a time. So I think Scott Strickland is hoping to get a young offensive-minded coach to get some excitement back in this program because, quite frankly, there was a lot of apathy. The Florida-Kentucky game
Yes.
wasn't even sold out.
Oh, wow.
The last game of the regular season. Now, that has never happened. While Florida basketball doesn't sell out all the games, when Kentucky comes to town, they do. And I knew when I went to that game back on March 5th, even before the Georgia thing came up and the end of the season with Mike White, in my mind I said, uh-oh, we got a problem here if you're Florida, because you've got to fill these seats when you bring in Kentucky, the premier program of the SEC, over the history of it in basketball. So that's why I think they're going to have to bring somebody in that not only is a good coach, but gives you an entertaining product offensively, which Florida has not had under Mike White for years.
Yeah, that's true. Matt McMahon would be an interesting fit. I still think a name I sent you, I know he's an older guy, but Mike Young at Virginia Tech, the style they play there, it's a little bit different. It's almost a Princeton style, but he does a great job with his offense. He did at Wofford, and then what he's done at Virginia Tech's been pretty amazing, winning the ACC championship. So I'm going to be interested to see. But I tend to agree with you. I think Scott Strickland, if you look at what he did with Billy Napier and what he's kind of done with that Florida program, he's probably going to try to find a young up-and-comer. Matt McMahon certainly has done remarkable things with Tevin Brown and that Murray State program, no doubt. Well, John, we appreciate the time and the insight. You do a great job covering the Sunshine State. Let everybody know how to follow you, my friend.
Thanks, Drew. Well, they can follow me on @JF_sports now on Twitter, and I've got a special Tuesday night show today, guys, because we had something called the Players' Championship.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
We had a little bit of everything: Gator basketball, Jaguar free agency, and a golf tournament that just would not end. But it finally did yesterday. So I'll be on from 5 to 7 tonight to recap that, the Jags, the Gators, and everything else on 1021news.com and 102.1 and 1240 in St. Augustine. And as always, guys, an honor and a pleasure to be on.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. All right, John Ferrari with us. Let's get a break in. When we come back, talk some NCAA basketball. Get you ready for tonight.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Sounds like they're clearing that wreck on 431 southbound at Simpson Point. That one's been working since about 3 o'clock this morning. And we got a new wreck on Wall Triana north of 72. They paged it out with injury and entrapment, but they've just canceled Rescue 1. That one has an overturned vehicle involved. Are you over 35 and overweight? 7 different hormones can make it impossible for you to lose weight. Find out with a free quiz at 2030huntsville.com. Captain Nick in the North Parkway Popeyes Skywatch Traffic Center.
Tom Luganbill here for my friends at Woody Anderson Ford. Bobby White and his team take great pride in their service department, and you can see it the moment you walk into those beautiful new service lanes. And just like a championship team, they all work together to make sure your experience is second to none, whether you drive a Ford or not. Also, check out the gold certified pre-owned inventory at Woody Anderson Ford for great deals every day. Stop by and see them at Jordan and Sparkman or at Woody Anderson of Madison on Hughes Road, or visit WoodyAndersonFord.com.
This is Wes Neighbors talking to Chris Haygood of Bob Wallace Appliance. Chris, what sets you apart from other appliance dealerships?
Wes, these appliances are going into the most used room in your house, your kitchen. The way we have these appliances displayed, it's easy for you to visualize how they'll look in your home. Wes, what sets us apart is the people. They're well trained. In fact, they live and breathe these appliances. And if you need service, you'll really appreciate our parts department.
Contact Bob Wallace Appliance at 256-533-2121.
You want the right specialist for your recovery. At SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, we understand every body is different. Your muscles and bones are unique, as is your body. Our SportsMed specialists offer innovative treatments and minimally invasive procedures, allowing you to quickly return to the life you love. Locations in Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur, and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com. Improving performance, improving lives.
Outdoor season is coming. Can't wait.
Here at Brooks & Collier, neither can we. Outdoor season is also grilling season.
And we have plenty of grills and smokers in stock from Traeger, Blaze, and Big Green Egg.
There's the greenhouse, new indoor items and home furnishings as well.
Whatever it takes. Browse over 2 acres of furnishings. Can't wait.
How about you? North Alabama's indoor and outdoor living headquarters for over 75 years.
813 Meridian Street and at brooksandcollier.com.
Ann Adams with Berkshire Hathaway Rise Real Estate is the one name to know if you're buying or selling real estate. With years of local experience, Ann Adams offers buyers in-depth knowledge of the local housing market and will narrow available properties down to those you'll be interested in so you can save time when shopping for your new home. If you're ready to sell, Ann offers a seamless process using accurate pricing and expert negotiation skills to make sure you get a fair price for your home. Call Ann Adams today at 256-337-2625 or log on bhhsriserealestate.com.
Taco Bell presents a get-out-of-bedtime story. It's time to wake up from this amazing dream, even though you're jet skiing on lemonade. How extreme! And oh, look at that, you just won the lottery. Is that a castle? Take the keys, it's your property. What's better than swimming in space? Just wait for the big reveal. It's Taco Bell breakfast and it's actually real. So it's time to wake up and bid your dreams farewell. Because toasted breakfast burritos are waiting for you, only at Taco Bell. At participating Taco Bell locations near you during breakfast hours only.
This segment of Talkin' Ball is brought to you by University Kia, the #1 volume Kia dealer in the state of Alabama. Located online at universitykia.com.
All right, welcome back to Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. We invite you to head to 977ESPN.com. Click on the Charles Barkley Final Pour Contest. Click on the link there, head there. Fill out your bracket. Presented by the Rocket City Trash Pandas and Rhythm on Monroe. Chance for you to win some great prizes. And if you look at your brackets this year, I don't know where you want to go. I don't know what you want to do. I don't know who you want it to be your favorite to win the whole thing. But I tell you what, going over and looking through the brackets this year seems to be one of the hardest years to pick a bracket because in the past you always had that one or two teams. Last year it was Gonzaga and Baylor that you pretty much penciled in to get to the finals, and it was 50-50 on who you thought would win. This year when you're picking these brackets, I don't know how you're doing or how you're wanting to line them up, but I tell you what, it's a little bit tricky this year.
It is. I mean, I was on another show this morning, and I couldn't pick my fourth yet. I'm being honest. It was
what region is
it's the
Midwest? The Midwest, okay.
Where your boys are at.
The Iowa Hawkeyes are okay.
Because I looked at the top 6 seeds.
So you got Kansas, Wisconsin,
and
Auburn.
I don't love Kansas.
Auburn's in that Midwest region.
I just didn't. I almost did it. You remember 1985 and the Big East and how good it was, right?
Right.
And that ended up being 3 Big East teams made the Final Four. And I believe Memphis was the other one, which was Memphis State at the time. It ended up being Georgetown, St. John's, and Villanova. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And that ended up being your Final Four, 3 of your Final Four. Now, I want to say Memphis State was the other one. And then you ended up with a final of Georgetown and Villanova, and we all know what happened. Villanova shot 80% and beat a heavily favored Georgetown team after I think Georgetown had beat them twice during the regular season. And so that's what I'm saying. I think Villanova was an 8 seed. And at the time, Scott, I think that was the lowest seed to ever win the tournament. And so Villanova, Ed Pinckney, you remember, all those guys, they ended up making a Cinderella run to the national championship until Jay Wright won a couple for them. And so I was very close to picking 3 SEC teams. In other words, out of the East, I was picking Kentucky. Out of the South, Tennessee.
And out of the Midwest, you were going to go
Auburn. I was thinking Auburn.
So Auburn's run looks like this. Jacksonville State in the opener.
Which is not going to be easy, but I think a win.
Then it's USC or Miami if they're able to get through Jacksonville State. It's USC or Miami. If And
I think that would be Miami. That's my pick.
You look at the upper part of that bracket.
Right.
Okay, Wisconsin's taking on Colgate. Iowa State is taking on LSU.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what shape LSU is going to be in.
That's what I said. Yeah, we don't know.
Because they don't have their head coach right now. They
don't have Western Union got fired for having a joint account and paying it, he and his wife cutting checks to, the entire roster. So he's not even there. We don't even know how motivated they're going to be. Iowa State is a decent team. They got off to a tremendous start in the pre-conference.
I did pick the Cyclones to beat LSU because of that factor alone.
Because
I don't know what kind of shape LSU is going to be in. And then you got Wisconsin and Colgate. So you got Wisconsin pops. I mean, Wisconsin should beat Colgate. Maybe it's a 3-14 game. I don't know. So Auburn's run, if they're able to get by USC or Miami, could either be Iowa State, Wisconsin, or Colgate or LSU.
I just think it's going to be Wisconsin and Auburn, and that's a very intriguing game to me because Greg Gard's team, they play a kind of a half-court style, kind of a grinded-out kind of deal.
Right.
And they're a really tough physical team. And Auburn
could be tough for Auburn's guards.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm really – but honestly, I'm really leaning toward Wisconsin. And I probably should have just pulled the trigger on Wisconsin on the show this morning. I should have said, okay, guys, I'm going with Wisconsin as my fourth team.
Let me ask you this, though. 3 weeks ago, would you have picked Auburn to go to the Final Four with the way they were playing versus how they finished in the SEC tournament?
Yeah, but I would. But in their last 9 games, and I want to give a shout-out to Justin Hoganson for putting this out there after they lost to Texas A&M in the quarterfinals. Auburn in their last 9 games is 5-4.
Interesting.
Because their guard play has just been really spotty. So I'm not sure I trust Auburn's guards. I do think Auburn's going to get to the Sweet 16, though.
That just makes me picking that Midwest bracket a little bit tougher there.
Yeah, the Midwest bracket for me is the toughest. But if you had to ask me right now, I'm leaning to Wisconsin. Wisconsin, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Gonzaga as my Final Four.
There's a little bit of NCAA tournament. By the way, it does start tonight. You get your Final Four. You get your first 4 games coming up tonight.